Hello, friends, and welcome to the Particularly Peculiar Podcast, episode number 16. In this episode, we are going to be covering something a little spooky, but something that is a lot peculiar.
A lot.
Yeah. We are talking about strange and unusual death rituals from around the world today. I am Taylor.
And my name is Christian.
And we are your hosts. We are here to talk about all things strange, unusual, and just plain peculiar. Thank you guys for joining us today. We apologize for the episode being a little bit late. We took ourselves on a little vacation. We went up to Minneapolis with our boys. We visited the Como Zoo up there and the mill ruins, which was really neat.
Yes, it was.
And we got a lot of pictures. So we'll have to post some of those to Instagram.
Went up with the boys.
Yeah, just our pals. No, our children.
It was really fun. Being able to see the Mill Ruins Park was super interesting, I think, to see like how industrial the edge of Minneapolis there on the river was. It was just super interesting to see how they had all the pictures of the underground even.
Yeah.
And the waterways and how they carried water to all the different places and how important the underground infrastructure was. And I would love to go inside of there. Like, there was that entrance. Everything's all gated off. And it's just that, I mean, it looks like as above, so below type.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Like, go into this dark tunnel that just goes underneath the city.
I wonder if they do tours.
I don't know, but there was that one that was gated off. Had the edge of it was curled up a little bit, so people had been getting in there. I mean, and you could see some graffiti and whatever right at the beginning.
Course. So I mean, of course they do.
I wonder what's going on up in there. I'm like, I just want to go in there, get a flashlight.
I bet it's creepy as fuck.
Get the cheapest Rayovac flashlight you can get, so it's dimly lit and you don't even know if it's gonna work the whole time. It just goes out while you're under there. And then you're like, oh, what is going on?
What?
Run!
Yeah, that would be pretty scary. It's pretty creepy looking. Okay, you guys. So today we are utilizing sources from The Culture Trip, My Farewelling, Gizmodo, Biography.com, and Britannica. Today we're covering death rituals, and I just kind of chose a few that I thought were interesting, and that's what we will be covering today. First, we're going to cover the Tibetan Buddhist celestial burial, which I find pretty interesting. It's kind of, I think, would probably be controversial here in Western culture.
Yeah, probably.
But it's pretty interesting. This can also be known as ritual dissection, or they also call it sky burial. So what they do when the dead pass away is they cut them up into pieces, or they will even leave the bodies whole. But they place them out as food for scavenging animals, especially vultures and birds. So Buddhists have profound respect for all of life, and having our final act of our body here on earth to nourish other life, I would say is the quintessential Buddhism, right?
Right.
So I know I kind of said that a minute ago, here in America, it probably seems a little bit gross even, or just wrong, because, we get a lot of the defiling corpses and things like that. It's something that is taboo here, that letting something feed on a corpse would be considered not okay.
Right. Well, around here, we just put you in a sealed box.
Or we light you on fire.
Yeah, or burn your body. Yeah, but I think that's much better than just letting our bodies sit inside of a box down underground for nothing, because you learn very early on that matter cannot be created or destroyed. So it's all of the matter that's inside of our bodies that came from the universe is now being useless inside of this box.
Yeah.
I feel something should happen. I mean, I don't know if I want to get like eaten by vultures,
Right.
but I mean, I would rather that honestly than be buried in a box.
Well, so when Buddhists utilize this practice, it's obviously like true compassion for them, because they are giving back their earthly bodies
Right.
back to the earth.
Yeah. Because
So,
you're not using it anymore.
no.
Like, let's let
And you're
something
going
else
to
use
come
it.
back as something else anyway.
Well, right.
So, over 80% of Buddhists today choose to have a sky burial when they pass. And this ritual has been around for thousands of years, and it seems to be obviously continuing to live on pretty strongly.
Right.
So, I don't see that one going away anytime
Nice.
soon.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Our next one, I went a little more in depth with on this one because there's a whole ceremony surrounding it. So, our next one is the Famadihana, or the Madagascar's Dancing with the Dead, or Turning of the Bones. This ritual actually occurs between 5 to 7 years after the original burial. And this only takes place in the highlands of Madagascar what I found. It doesn't really go on anywhere else. It involves a huge ceremony. The Culture Trip website described it as a time for the Malagasy people to spend time with their loved ones, both living and deceased. The Malagasy celebrate this event so that new family members can meet their ancestors and memories can be shared and never forgotten.
Interesting.
Typically, relatives of those who have passed will get together about a year in advance to start discussing the plans, like dates, expenses, and guest lists. During the ceremony, neighbors and locals from all around are invited to share the traditional meals of the rice and pork or beef. The responsibility will fall on a local astrologer, actually, who establishes which exact dates between July and September that Famadihana will fall over. And if I'm saying that incorrectly, I apologize.
Right.
Let me know. Over these 2 or 3 days, the family tombs can be opened. So it has to be on those days that the astrologer finds.
Right.
The first day is called Fidurana, or the entry day. The second day is Famanasana, or the wrapping day. The day before the ceremony, relatives and family members of the deceased, many of them who haven't actually been seen since the last Famadihana gathering, come together and introduce new family members. The night is filled with talking, playing music, drinking, dancing, and preparing for the next day's meal. The men of the family are in charge of killing and preparing animals for the meat of the meal. When guests arrive for Famanahana, they give rice and money to the organizers. The amount of money and the quantity of rice is recorded in what is known as the altero que alo, literally meaning to give something and receive it back. This tradition ensures that when guests have to organize their own Famadihana, they will be repaid and supported the same way that they paid and supported this one. Expenses are all shared. All the money and rice collected will be shared to everyone who has contributed to the expenses. When all the guests have eaten, the hosting family prepares the party to visit the tomb. Since it is a celebration of life, people will wear their best outfits. They have a group of musicians that play trumpets, drums, and flutes. They accompany the party and they follow them all the way through the village to the tomb. Then once they're at the tomb, the bodies are removed and they are placed on reed mats. The host family wraps the bodies with new shrouds. At this point, people can place something the person liked when he or she was alive in with the new sheets. So like cigarettes, alcohol, perfume, makeup, things like that. For children, people will usually put like sweets or candy in with their shrouds. And once they are freshly wrapped, the direct relatives dance with the bodies and present them to the newcomers in the family. So like if someone got married in between last Famadihana and this one, they will like bring their wife or their spouse and have them meet this person who has passed away.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's really pretty interesting. I think it's kind of cool that they continue to have this, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, just such a connection to family that they would do this, years after they've passed and bring their family to introduce them
Yeah.
to their spouse. It's just
Like,
really,
even though they are dead and gone, they are still important to this family.
Right.
Their memory.
They're still involved. They bring them new shrouds. They give them things that they loved, and they introduce them to
Right.
new members. Like, I think that's really neat. So recently there has been some controversy because it is thought that the practice of Famadihana led to a plague outbreak in Madagascar.
Oh, shit.
Because obviously removing the infected remains could still spread an illness.
Yeah.
So they're removing it and they're removing the body, agitating the remains, removing old shrouds and replacing them with new ones.
Yeah.
So obviously.
It can be a little unsanitary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
But it's like, also, if it's something that is just in the Madagascar highlands and that is something that, if that is a risk that they are willing to take to continue on with their traditions, then I guess that's for them to decide. And that's,
yeah,
I think, to be respectful of their culture and their decisions.
Maybe there's just different things they could implement to try and, reduce the risk of, spreading some sort of disease.
Right.
But I don't think that they would just stop the whole thing.
No, I doubt it. So the last one that I decided to cover today is the ritual making of death masks, which was requested a long time ago by our friend Danny. So Danny, this is a shout out to you.
Whoop, whoop.
A death mask is quite literally a mask of a deceased person's face.
Mm-hmm.
It's either a plaster or a wax mold made of someone after they have passed. It's mostly 100% replica, other than sometimes they make some changes to the eyes to have them appear alive, which I'm like,
Creepy.
ew.
Yeah.
It's thought that this practice began in ancient Egypt, where they believed that the masked replicas of their faces would allow their souls to find their way back to their bodies. Which I'm like, if it's your soul, it probably doesn't need to see your face to know where to go. But I don't know. These death masks since the 13th century have been used to help tomb effigy sculptors. But before this, they were actually used for royal funeral effigies. Isaac Newton and Beethoven actually have death masks. Napoleon Bonaparte and other people of history. But even as recent as John Dillinger, who was a famous bank robber, he died in 1934 and he actually has a death mask.
Interesting.
And I believe, I honestly can't remember 100% and I don't know why I didn't put this in my notes, but I think they actually utilized the death mask to ensure that they were like going after the right person. Like the FBI did.
Really?
Not like going after, but just like confirming after, I guess I should say, that it was actually John Dillinger or that they got the right person.
So are they making a cast of the deceased face and then making, so that essentially makes a mold and then they fill it and make like a bust out of it?
It's just the face. It's not like a bust.
I mean, but it's like a mask that you would wear, or do they use that, to make the mold and then fill it with some sort of, like material?
I don't know.
Right. So they cover the face with the plaster stuff to create the negative space, and then they fill that negative space with, whatever hardening product they choose, but so it makes essentially like a bust.
Yeah, like
it makes a replica head.
Yes.
Made of whatever material.
And I think it's so creepy. Like, look at this one. It looks like a sculpture.
Yep. Which is really cool. That one down there is pretty cool.
This is John Dillinger's, apparently.
See any of this, but
which I'm like, I don't think that looks like him at all. Which we can post these on Instagram, obviously, but I don't think that looks like him at all.
Well, I bet if you... Well, does it kind of have a mustache on it?
We shouldn't be laughing at that, but I think it does.
That's funny. What do you mean?
It is funny if it has a mustache. So that's really all that I have for death rituals, but what do you think like you would like to have happen when you die?
Well, we seem to be fairly limited on our choices here in the United States, but I guess I mean, as I say that, I don't really know what's actually allowed and what isn't allowed. Like the two that happen the most is just a burial or a cremation, and like before that happens, you can be like an organ donor or like a cadaver for like school. But I just think that, so I know what I don't want. I do not want to be put in a coffin and buried in the ground.
Yeah.
100%, I do not want that.
That is, I think, fading out quite a bit now, too.
Right. So if I were to be buried in the ground, I would want it to be an open burial or some sort of box that can decompose over a short period of time, not a super long period of time. But I really do believe in the fact that our matter matters.
Okay, so
but really, though,
that's our new shirt design.
like our matter matters. But honestly, like,
well, we're supposed to be here because we're living here. We're
Yeah.
on the earth. We came from the earth or stardust.
right?
So-
yeah, whichever you believe.
Why do we not go back to that? Why do
Yeah.
why do we quote unquote destroy it or let it rot?
And clearly, our matter that makes up our body is extremely valuable and important because look what it can do.
Right.
Like all of the things that make up my entire body and brain and everything makes this all work. So like all of this should go back into the earth.
It's life force. It's life energy.
Right. Whether that's just into the dirt or, I mean, to be, like I see that the Buddhist culture there, to be consumed by other animals, like, and then you're nourishing their bodies, and then like it just continues on, and like
Right.
because if matter cannot be created or destroyed, which, well, then how does the universe keep expanding? I don't know, but
whoa. Rein it in.
Jesus.
Sorry.
But then I just think that it's a waste to just put our bodies in a sealed chamber in the ground.
I definitely don't think I want to be like, all done with formaldehyde and buried. Like, I don't
Right.
think I want anything like that. I also don't think I want to be cremated. That's a really hard thing for me to comprehend. Like when we've had, like when, obviously my grandma passed away and she was cremated, or even when we put our little dog down, and
Yeah.
we take in our dog and then we go back to get her and she's in this tiny box. Like,
Rest in peace, little sugar booger.
yeah, sugar beans. But it's just like, it's a weird thing. It's a hard thing for me to comprehend. I also have had very vivid and scary nightmares about being cremated alive.
Yeah.
So, obviously that doesn't really happen now, I don't think, but it's just like, I don't think that's anything that I would want. I have seen that people now have been being able to be put into like these biodegradable, like tree pod things,
Yeah.
which I think would be really neat to be planted with trees.
That's with your ashes though, right?
I don't know if it's with your ashes or if you can actually like put your body into a pod. Like, I don't know how it works. But I have seen that you can actually make your ashes, or no, I'm sorry, you can actually like let your body decompose naturally and then it can be mixed into a soil that you can bring home and plant, which I
Nice.
thought was pretty cool too.
That is pretty interesting.
So those are two really interesting options. I don't know if that's something that is like here practiced in the United States or if there has to be a certain, whatever about it. I don't know if it's just something you can say is your final wish.
This is just another thing for them to control our decisions.
Yeah, I
Like
don't know.
what I want to do with my body. Like, no, I don't want you to throw me in the river that we pull from for our drinking water.
No.
But, I mean, there's other options here.
So, yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I think doing something like that would be really neat. And then another thing is that's really interesting to me. I mean, I am an organ donor, and I think that's something that is
Me too.
extremely important
Mm-hmm.
because if our life can save if losing our life, can be turned around and save another life, that's amazing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
My brother passed away when he was 13 and he was an organ donor and he changed a lot of lives. So I think that's something that is so important. So that is something I will, continue to do. But I also have heard about people who can donate their bodies to like science in a way where, say they take a body and they want to see if something like this happens in this situation, if someone dies naturally in the wilderness, or if someone is, murdered and left on the side of the road or whatever, they can take these bodies and they can basically put them in these different situations and see how they decompose, or see what happens as time goes on after someone has passed. And it's kind of an interesting, almost morbid idea, but it's also like another thing that would be so super helpful.
Yeah, because
to
like if they can simulate
science.
those instances and then like monitor and track in
Exactly.
real time how the body decomposes, they can use that to identify how long has the body been here and whatever, and like
Put them in different weather conditions.
Right. And it would help so much with ongoing investigations or, new ones.
Yeah.
And finding, what actually happened instead of being so like in the dark about it.
Now, I think that's probably a bit harder for people with families, because I think it's hard for people to think about their loved one just being out in a field somewhere. But it's also like, if you can make that choice to make that not have to happen for someone else to have unanswered questions, you know, like maybe it'd be worth it at that point. But
right.
Yeah, I don't know. So those are my thoughts.
I had an old foreman, Andy, at Jet, who
Hey Andy, you better be listening, Andy.
I guarantee he's not.
Amanda.
So I had an old foreman who was, one of his biggest like fears, was a legitimate fear, was surrounding death, but being buried alive or cremated alive
So
or whatever.
scary.
Like he had, this ongoing fear that was going to happen to him. And it's like, how do you make sure? And it's like, well, I mean, by now we're pretty, we're able to make that determination pretty well now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in any doubt at all, let them lay there for a few days.
Right.
Just like in their bed at home or something.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
But that used to be a thing, which is something we should probably do on the podcast too, is like when people would be buried with bells.
Yep.
So
you can ring it, just in
if
case
it was
they're
like, oops, she wasn't quite dead. But anyway, so that's how we feel about some afterlife stuff.
Right.
And some, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a death ritual, burial.
Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting to hear what, any of you guys either want to happen to you, or just things you've heard of in different cultures that we didn't discuss today. Because, I mean, we only talked about a few. There's got to be
there's
thousands.
Obviously plenty more. And I am sorry it was such a short episode. We just were so crunched for time with getting something out. And
and we still have to make one for next Tuesday. So, we're pushing everything a little tight, but you guys are awesome.
Yeah, thank you for being so understanding. Give us your recommendations, you guys. Visit us at www.particularlypeculiar.com. You can use our contact form. Shout out to Clarissa for giving us our first listeners story.
Yep, which we will be putting on one of our next episodes.
Yes, we're kind of keeping it in a safe little folder for now, and we are hoping to get a few more submissions so we can make an episode of it. So thank you, Clarissa. Did I say with 30, Dirty, and Dying? Thank you so much. You guys go listen to them. They're great. Go ahead and go to that website, though. Leave us a submission for listener stories or for recommendations on what we should cover in the future, which, like we were talking about here, if it's like a burial ritual or something like that, afterlife even recommendations, drop those in our contact box on the website. We are going to be launching our store.
We have our merch. We possess it. The shirts have been made. If you follow us on Instagram, you have seen.
Yes, but also, guys, we were on vacation, so our store launch got pushed back a little bit too.
Well, and also it was that, but also I've had some legal, like, I've also had some paperwork and things that I've been waiting on being finished
Oh,
with
yeah, that's true.
with registering the business with the county and all that. You know, setting it
He's
up as
lying.
a
He's a criminal.
no, yes.
That's
So,
his legal
so
issues.
setting it up as a legit business, you know, to use the online store and everything. But we'll let you know as soon as that launches, and we're also getting more products in.
Yes,
So we're not
guys.
just going to be selling shirts. The whole idea is to really just sell everything we like.
Everything
Honestly,
that
you
is
know.
also kind of oddity, peculiar, different. Right now, we don't have too much of the oddity aspect yet, but we are hoping to get there. But we have, what do we have? We have candles that are going to be going out. We have,
We'll do sage bundles. We'll do
yes,
some crystals.
yes. And a lot of the crystals that we'll probably put up initially are actually coming from our personal
Our
collection.
supply.
So just so you guys know, that's really cool. But anyway, all of that good stuff. Also, go follow us on Instagram. You'll see all of our posts there.
Which is what we use the most.
Yes, that is what we use the most. But we will see you again soon. Until next time,
Our peculiar people.